Welcome back to the DigiDM's guide to Dawn of Defiance, the SW5e conversion of the Saga Edition campaign. So this is a review of level 1. There are spoilers ahead, so unless you are dungeon mastering, game mastering this game, look no further. There are plenty of other entertaining videos. This is for GMs only. The adventure starts months or within a few years of Order 66. It's a little vague, gives you some wiggle room as the GM to decide. Players are on a space station orbiting the core world of Brental. And we see in this adventure just a little space station image there. So you can allow your players to interact with the scene and, of course, describe themselves as it is the first game session. It's best to predetermine their relationships, or if they just all happen to be on the space station promenade at the same time. For my players, I had them, they were previously in Escape from Moshuda and Long Arm of the Hut and had been bouncing around the galaxy and had a pretty busted up ship that landed them on the space station. But you figure out what's best for your group. One way to build the world is to inform them of the stores in the promenade. There is a cantina and a local casino called the Credit Chip. There are plenty of places like a medical supply shop, a droid repair and sales spot. These places can give them a chance to roleplay in a safe and introductory way. You'll then want to introduce the agent Maya. She's a desperate agent. She stumbles into the promenade and asks for help as the station's security agents yell to stand down or be considered hostile to the party. Hopefully your heroes will act and defend the hurt agent. If not, she can encourage them with the promise of credits or appealing to their hate for the Empire. She may even reveal that she's an Alderaanian security agent and the Empire is hiding something. This battle is intended to be easy and allows players to get used to their weapons and abilities. They're level 1 at this point, so they're pretty squishy. You can always start with one agent per player and have more join the fray if it's too easy or you want to make combat longer. Maya tells the party that she works for Senator Bail Organa and that there's important cargo that needs to be secured. She points the players to find Switch, an information droid or local crime lord. Depending on the roleplay and dice rolls, she can tell them more information. With my players, I played it with some urgency as she was still injured and hiding from station security. The players can find Switch in the deep storage bay, a rundown storage area accessible by way of vents and ducts. Allow players their own method of finding this, social checks and asking around or hacking a data console. Switch is a great social encounter. I played him as a highly confident, unworried, and very intelligent information broker. A good idea to support this is thinking of him as somewhat invincible. Perhaps these droid bodies are simply holding his consciousness and he can switch between certain protocol droids. This will give him a carefree attitude with no worries about threats. You could also incorporate him into players' personal backstories and quests. My Switch is hiring players to complete bounties while also steering them in wrong directions for his own personal gain. After the social encounters with Switch, a rival gang leader called Gangalore comes in with goons, guns blazing. Gangalore is a Shevin. Switch has some goons on his side that might switch sides to add to the complexity and sense of distrust in the universe. The players will hopefully defend Switch, and he gives up information about the cargo being another Alderaanian security agent that froze himself in carbonite for shipment rather than risk being detected traveling from the secret operations in and around core worlds. Our last encounter is likely a smash and grab on the clean anti-alien, noble-occupied blue deck. Players come face to face with more security and they have to get the carbonite block and then call Maya to get rescued. I had my agents call for backup right away, giving players a chance to face some stormtroopers. A Baudo-class star yacht, piloted by Serona O'Keefe, arrives to pick the players up. And this is actually important for future encounters. So we have our handouts here, and The Banshee is the yacht that they get picked up in. And Serona O'Keefe, who they're just meeting now, will be their pilot for the foreseeable future. You can have your players dart off into hyperspace, or an optional practice if you want to do some starship combat. As Serona is calculating astrogation travel, you may have some cells on station security go after them. And then we level up to level 2. Level 2 starts with players meeting Senator Bail Organa on Alderaan. He hires the players as enemies of the Empire or freelance entrepreneurs to the planet Felucia to discover the fate of a turncoat Imperial Admiral. If the Admiral still lives there, to bring him back to Alderaan. The players are able to get common supplies, and it takes about 8 days to get to Felucia, so it's a great time for roleplay and downtime activities. In exiting hyperspace, a Victory-class Star Destroyer is nearby and forces Serona, with the Banshee and the players, to dive into the atmosphere of Felucia. It's a wild, giant, exploding mushroom jungle. I wanted my players to have more Starship combat experience, so I had another set of TIE fighters chase them through a canyon with exploding mushrooms. Ultimately, the Banshee is damaged and they must walk through the jungle towards the Imperial prison facility where intelligence informed Organa the Admiral was last pinged. Players must make some survival checks, and it's another great opportunity for role play. It's a sticky, dangerous jungle after all. I used a Theater of the Mind piece there. The players are then intercepted by Felucian scouts. They have an area of effectability that causes the earth to burst from beneath their feet. They're strong and engage in close combat. Whether players or the Felucians are defeated, instead of death, they become unconscious, so there's no death blows delivered. The scouts simply mistook the players for Imperials and are soon corrected when the translator, a human former separatist named Vasus Mandrake, intervenes. He guides the players to the hidden village where it's clear they are no fans of the Empire. Mandrake wants help in planting an explosive device in the communications center of the prison to debilitate Imperial presence here for some time. At the village, they can learn about the prison facility, and it's a great time to build some relationships with native children or the chief, who is force sensitive. They roleplay to get possible support and information from the locals. I found in my campaign would have been helpful to have a Felucian village, which I did not have. I sort of have this jungle area, but I think a village map would have been nice. A perception check allows the players to hear a low whining from a speeder bike coming from the outskirts of the village. Mandrake urges the players to chase him down, or he'll report the hidden village and the heroes to his superiors, and soon after, stormtroopers will descend upon them. Fortunately, mushrooms in the area have chemicals in their stalks that block long-range communication, so there's little chance that the scout trooper could report his findings before reaching his base. Mandrake has a herd of Kaibucks that the players can choose to ride and chase after the scout trooper. And these fast mounts will involve animal checks. Really great, entertaining roleplay opportunity to do animal checks and to imagine I had a B2 battle droid trying to ride one of these, which was fantastic. The chase consists of animal handling checks and is broken up into 5 zones. The start of the next encounter depends on how players do, and combat may begin before the whole party arrives. So the adventure calls for 4 Imperial soldiers and 2 troopers on speeder bikes. Speeder bikes have disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws due to their clogged filtration systems. My players did pretty well here, and I think 2 out of the 5 of them arrived late to the encounter. So that's helpful, I think, just to understand the stakes at play for the chase. But ultimately, they're going to arrive at the encounter, the jungle outpost, where there are satellite dishes that could send out the location of the village. So there's some stakes there. The scout troopers attempt to distract the heroes, zooming around the battlefield to make it more difficult for them to approach the outpost. Due to interference caused by chemicals in many of the local fungi, it takes nearly a minute, 10 rounds, to establish communications with the Imperial facility. So the scout troopers are going to try to distract the heroes for 10 rounds, hoping to buy time for one of the soldiers to call for reinforcements. If the heroes fail to defeat the Imperials in this time period, the call goes out and 6 more troopers on speeder bikes arrive 2 minutes later. Call doesn't go out, the players have time to return to the village and rest. And if the call went out, they will likely want to get to the prison facility to prevent any more harm to the village. And the village guide can tell them about the secret entrance. What my players ended up doing is they stopped the call from going out, but then they essentially just followed the ping directly to the prison facility without the guide. Moving to the facility. Now, my players definitely wanted to scout out the outside of the facility and keep track of things. This is a facility where there are 2 stories. One story, the second story is smaller than the main floor. There's also large doors, and I think it makes mention of AT-AT units walking around. So that was a nice little stealth opportunity for my players. But ultimately, they're supposed to sneak into a ventilation shaft rather than going in guns a-blazing into one of the main AT-AT doors. Known by the locals as the Vanishing Place, the prison facility is for Imperial dissidents and traitors. There's a turret near the front preventing any direct entry. That is down here. It's very likely your players will want to find the secret entrance. There's a medical bay where a slightly demented Imperial captain has been experimenting with genetically altering the locals to create mutant warriors. This medical bay was really fun encounter for my players, as there is a medical droid that was trying to heal some of the researchers, and I also had modified Felucians in these Bacta tanks that could essentially, if the tanks are shot and the glass destroyed, these Felucians would get out. Here's my Felucians modified to have these bladed bone arm type of deals. So pretty formidable mutant warriors. The players navigate the facility, finding Admiral Nathan Gilder in the prison and ultimately facing off with Captain Vishera and his genetically modified Felucians. This is the boss battle for episode 1 and should be intense and challenging. Before we get to the boss battle, I want to talk about our prisoner here. So it's up to you what you call him. I think Varth sometimes can give away a little bit of a sinister nature. I mean, his art already sort of does that, but I call him Nathan Gilder. Some people change his name for reasons, storyline reasons, and trying to make his upcoming many chapters later, his betrayal a little less obvious. But there's plenty of hints that he is perhaps two-faced. So, but he is in the prison facility here, and then there are these lifts that take you up to the boss battle at the end of the chapter, and that would be the command center scene here. So I've got this guy, Captain Vishera, which would be our lead boss, along with his Felucians. And I made these guys a little bit stronger than the guys in the medical bay, plus a couple of minions down there. So the Felucians have a mighty swing ability, dealing extra damage on a hit, and prison guards have simple blasters, like the captain buffs a creature with his leadership ability and blasts from behind the console. So I pretty much had him ducking back here, getting some cover, and using his leadership ability, which when we look at, he can utter a special command, and everyone within 30 feet of him makes an attacker saving throw. They can add a d4 to basically buff up those around him. Players can plant the explosive given by Basis Mandrake into this command center, and that would do the job pretty well. And then they could take the lift further up to the roof. And I basically had these lifts locked down unless they pulled a key from some guard. So pretty easy to do. Again, we're in level 1 here, so we're not going to make our players think too hard. So once destroyed here, they take the lift to the roof and get picked up by Serona O'Keefe and the Banshee. There is a built-in starship battle here for players to get their first deployment. If you hadn't done this for escaping Selzon Station or coming into Felucia, now is the time to do it, is as they escape, or you can make it their second one, get another deployment or another rank in their current deployment. So after destroying the fighters, so as they try to escape, there are TIE fighters that come in, and after fleeing or destroying the TIE fighters, O'Keefe says she's been instructed to rendezvous with a starship in the remote and uninhabited Xandrax system instead of returning to Alderaan. And that is where the adventure concludes, as they bring Admiral Gilder Varth, Nathan Gilder, to the rendezvous point designated by Senator Organa, and then they're introduced to the hub, or the frigate that is going to be the base of operations, the place that they visit between adventures and stock up and resupply. Essentially, the Resistance is the Nebulon B frigate Resurgence. Organa has commissioned this to serve as its mobile hiding place for the Admiral, as well as for the players should they need supplies. O'Keefe makes it a point not to say Bail Organa's name to the Admiral, and it's helpful to sort of emphasize that not everyone in Bail Organa or O'Keefe's team trusts this Admiral, who was a previous Imperial Admiral. They make their landing on the Resurgence, the brand new Nebulon B frigate, and this will be their hub for the foreseeable future. They should have a medical bay if they need it, and the Resurgence is captained by Adrian Verana. He is going to be the captain, the point person for the Resurgence, and he's an Alderaanian officer. He transfers credits to the players' accounts and wonders about Gilder's role in the entire Imperial secrecy. If the players do reveal an Inquisitor was headed to the prison to pick up Gilder, he gets extra curious, as they may have found that note in one of the terminals. That is the end of the first chapter, and the player should level up to level 3 before ending that chapter. That is all for this particular GM's guide for Dawn of Defiance. Stay tuned for Chapter 2.